something like that. Jake and I took care of that and just took one extra cog out of the system that didn't need to be there.
Yeah, well, good.
And I also put our dual camera right there. And that's where, well, it was there before, but that's where the audio then is also going to, because it makes sense that it would be there.
Okay.
But this is episode 38.
Are you kidding me?
Nope.
Wow. We've done this 38. Well, I haven't done it 38 times, but as a group,
you've done a majority of them, though.
We've done 38 of these.
We've done 38.
Wow.
I know.
Okay. Well, yeah, we could talk about the future after we're done.
Okay.
And this might be a little shorter one today.
That's totally fine.
And
this is also, just so everyone knows, this is the final one of this season, right?
The final one of the season, and then we'll pick up season 2 in the end of September.
Yeah.
So we're going to get there. But before we start, I have some books I want to recommend.
Perfect.
So what we're going to do here, I'll recommend. It's called, again, from David Foreman. I keep pumping his books. I should be getting like some kind of royalty or something.
Well, I mean, I think you could maybe set up a link.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
My guess is you could maybe set up a link and you can get residuals. And if we put the link into the description notes, perhaps we can.
I wonder how many people will read these books. But I found Rabbi David Foreman to be really, I won't say easy to read because it challenges your thoughts about what you thought you always knew to be the true. But he puts it in a way that's easy. It's accessible, and when something comes out that just blows your mind or something, it doesn't just it's thoughtful, and I think he knows who he's writing to, and so I want people to, if they want to work ahead. A couple of books that will be helpful is the book of Esther. It's called The Queen You Thought You Knew by Rabbi David Foreman. The Queen You Thought You Knew, Unmasking Esther's Hidden Story, Rabbi David Foreman. Quick note about Esther. I think this is right. Esther's the only book in the Bible that does not expressly have God or Yahweh as a character in the plot.
Huh.
So this is all happening, and I don't know if you go. Actually, I haven't read this yet, but I will. I'm reading some other things, but I'm sure that he brings that out somewhere. But The Queen You Thought You Knew, Unmasking Esther's Hidden Story by Rabbi David Foreman.
Awesome.
So that one, and then before we get to the prophets, I want to hit another book, because we're going to get to the prophets. And we're going to move through the prophets pretty quickly, but they're not all the same. And a lot of times we think the prophets are all the same. They're not, and we'll get to this deeper.
Well, you got major and minor prophets, right?
You got major ones, you got early ones, you got some speaking before the Assyrians, some after the Assyrians, some before the Babylonians, some after or during the Babylonians, and all these different kinds of things. And not all of the prophets are pointing towards Israel. Some of them pointing to other countries and other kings. Mm-hmm. And not all the prophets necessarily agree what the problem is. And somehow in our own thoughts, we think there's a monolith that every prophet's saying the same thing to the same audience, and that's simply not true. So in order to break that down for us, fabulous book by Walter Brueggemann. Now, Walter Brueggemann is a well-known longtime theologian scholar that I had to read thick books of his when I was in seminary.
Okay.
This is not a thick book. He also writes a book on the Psalms. It's really, really good. I mean, he's written some really thought-provoking books. And this one on the prophets it's going to challenge you. The prophets are going to challenge us. Because if we think the prophets are just speaking to some group of people that lived 1,500 years ago or 3,500 years ago, The prophets are speaking to us today, and we don't always want to hear that stuff. But it's Walter Brueggemann, Out of Babylon. It is not a thick, heavy book at all, but it is a good read. I have read this one, and it's a good read. And then I want to throw something else out there that's weird, that has basically nothing to do with the Trust the Story.
Okay.
So we have a young man on our staff for the summer. His mom has been on staff, but this young man, his name is Chris Snyder. Chris Snyder.
Yep, I know him. Yep.
And he works with our facilities guys. He also does sound and tech stuff on the weekends, and he's been doing this for a couple years. And his time is he's about to go back to Madison, Wisconsin, for the year, but he's been here for the summer. He kept mentioning this book to me that he read that thought, and Chris is all about context and history. I mean, he's in his early 20s, and he's digging into context and history and all this kind of stuff. And so he mentioned a book called Destiny Disrupted, A History of the World Through Islamic Eyes.
Oh, okay.
Destiny Disrupted, A History of the World Through Islamic Eyes by Tamim Ansari. Sorry, Tamim, if I screwed your name up. But I'm halfway through. It is amazing. Because what I always thought I knew about Islam and Muhammad specifically is way, way, way off. I'm going to let people read it, and they can come to their own conclusions, and maybe they're not as interested as I am as this kind of stuff. But yeah, where am I? I'm right here. Oh, I've got my actual check bag stub from when we were flying to Phoenix for the churchwide Senate Assembly, and I was reading it on the plane and in the airport. Destiny Disrupted. It's very interesting. It will give you a deep insight on the Islamic tradition, how it started, why it started, what was it about when it started, and then what it became.
Got it.
And then, of course, the competing. I mean, there's this idea that group of people had always thought they had a destiny that was going to lead them into the world powers.
Okay.
And the Destiny Disrupted means something came along and disrupted that whole destiny. And a lot of those nations that are Islamic nations, even though they're spread out all over the place, and it's a growing religion, it's not the world powers that we have in the world today, United States.
I mean, isn't that part of what the Islamic State was hoping to achieve?
Yeah, and so there's some Destiny Disrupted in there, and it's really, really interesting. And the author is great, and it's a history book, but it's written really well, and it's again accessible. So, a couple books there, and then we're going to get to today to specifically talking about. So it'll be a little bit shorter. I've been waiting to do this because I'm going to get into the books of the Bible, the order they're in our Protestant Bibles versus the order that the Old Testament is in the Hebrew, and how they understand it. And the way that the original writers, like if you write a book, Ethan,
yeah,
and you say this is a book about history or prophecy, then if someone comes along later on and goes, no, this is not a book about history or prophecy, this is a book about story or whatever, I mean, it changes what you've written.
Yeah.
And it's not what you intended.
Mm-hmm.
What we have in our Protestant Bible, the order of books is not what it was intended to be, but we'll get into that a little bit. We're going to skip 2 books.
I don't know if we can handle that, but okay.
I have to skip these 2 books. So,
which 2 books are we going to skip?
Well, first one is once we're done with Dueteronomy, Moses is going to be So we'll hit Deuteronomy a little bit because this will be our last one.
Which is the original Torah, right?
Part of the original Torah. Yeah.
Okay.
The book 5, the last one. It's all about remembering. Remember who you are. Remember what I taught you. It's a list. It's basically a sermon about all the stuff that Moses had been telling his people through Exodus, Numbers, and Leviticus and the Numbers. Got to get the order right, as I just was talking about.
Yes.
So Moses knows he's not going to cross over to the Promised Land. And Moses is giving his last, come on, you can remember. And then there is this leadership transfer to this guy named Joshua.
Yeah.
And the whole book of Joshua. I was in Tanzania last summer on our mission trip. And every night I knew we were doing, trust the story and all this stuff. And I knew I needed to read Joshua. Reread it. Joshua is the hardest book for me because basically Joshua goes everywhere and kills everything.
Yes. Yep.
And it's on God's orders. I mean, if you read Joshua just plainly in terms of the story, God says to Joshua, go kill these people, and then go kill all these people, and then go kill all these people, and then go kill all these people. And I'm trying to wrap my head around my own notion of a loving God with the amount of death and destruction and basically genocide, ethnic cleansing, something that's hard to wrap my head around.
I mean, especially given current climate, right?
Current climate, and especially given all the weird stuff that happened throughout history.
Yeah.
And, I mean, just think about Jericho, right? I mean, the story of Jericho, we've turned that story into a children's play. There are churches that will have the students or the kids march around Jericho 7 times and blow the horn and everything and yell and the walls come down and everybody goes, yay! But what happens after the walls come down?
Everyone dies.
Everyone dies except for a couple prostitutes. Everyone dies. The animals, the women, the children, old people, young people, they kill all of them. Well, that's not a children's musical. That's not a children's play. And I have yet, maybe someone watching this, I'm not in for the easy answer in terms of, well, that's what God said, so that's what they did. There's something going on behind Joshua. I have not found a resource or several resources that helps me work through that. And if someone's listening to this and they've found some resources that have helped them struggle through Joshua, I'd love to hear it. And I hope that at some point in time we'll be able to come back to Joshua and address it, because I don't want to walk away from hard scripture, at least for our modern Western minds, hard scripture. So we're going to skip Joshua for now, and then we're also going to skip Judges. And Judges are about somewhat of the same kind of thing, that God is coming in and judges the people, and somebody comes in and kills all the people, and then another judge rises up, and and it's called this. It's a cycle of the people doing all the wrong things. God punishes them by killing people, and then they get another chance. So I was listening. Marty Solomon, who the Bema podcast is phenomenal, and I listened to. He had a different take on it, in that there are a lot of people who think that it's like this judgment cycle, the cycle of judgment. He reads it, and wherever he got that from, I'm sure his teachers, reads it as a redemption cycle, a forgiveness cycle, that God continues to take God's people back. I mean, you think, Ethan, if you had a group of followers and they kept disobeying you, you would think you'd be like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. But all of Scripture is filled with I'll take you back. I'll take you back. I'll forgive you. You're redeemed. You're redeemed. So he has this redemption cycle feel for it. I don't have enough handle on it for me to try to talk about it and teach on it, but at some point we'll go back to it. But it's given me a sense of, not to make my own like squishy, lovey-dovey God be more appealing, but it's true in all of Scripture. If you read that through line that happens all the way through Scripture, I mean, right away they're on the mountain. Moses is on the mountain with God, getting God's instructions. He's forming a covenant. They're about to get married. Like Moses is buying the ring, and what are the people doing? They're already cheating on God with the golden calf already before they even get started. And God says, "I'm going to kill everybody." Moses said, "No, don't do that. I'll kill them for you." You know, that's where the Levites came around. But sorry, I don't mean to be so flippant with that. And God says, "Okay, I'll take them back. I'll take them back. I'll take them back over and over and over again. I'll take them back." So anyway, we're going to skip those two books for now.
We're going to come back to JJ.
We're going to come back to JJ. That's pretty good, actually, JJ. And so we're going to do that. So one of the things that I've learned, and I've been waiting to share this with our people, is that when we begin to order our Bibles, just where they are in the Bible and how we describe them sets meaning to that book, that prescribes to us what we should be thinking about that book when we read it.
Okay. Yep.
And so I want to go through, if people want to grab a pen and paper, go ahead. And you guys could probably find all of this online as well. The order of books from the Hebrew Bible and the Protestant Bible. So the Hebrew Bible typically is called Tanakh. I'm going to try to say some of these Hebrew words.
Say it with confidence.
I know, that's right, Tanakh. And it's split up into three different sections. We're talking our Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible. The consonants, the T, the N, and the K, are what's being lifted up. Actually, if you were going to be writing in Hebrew, you would only write the consonants. Ancient Hebrew was consonants. They didn't have vowels. Later on, they put vowels in. So consonants mean something. So the T, the N, the K, the Tanakh. And the T stands for Torah, which means teaching. And those are the first 5 books of the Bible that we've almost been
Genesis,
through with.
Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy.
Nice job. Well, you went to school.
I did.
You did. Yes, you did. And then the next books are Nevi'im, something like that. Which one sounded better? Nevi'im? That sounds better.
That sounds more Jewish.
Yeah, that sounds more exotic. I'm going to go with that one. And that means prophets. And there are going to be some differences from our Hebrew Bible or from our Protestant Bible to the Hebrew Bible. So the prophets that the Hebrew folks have are Joshua, Judges, Samuel, Kings, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, and then there's 12. Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi. There are 2 books in that section called prophets that are not in what we have as prophets.
Right.
And there's one in our prophets section that they don't have in their prophet section. So there's 2 books, Samuel and Kings. So 1st, 2nd Samuel, 1st, 2nd Kings. We have them in our historical book section with Joshua, Judges, Ruth, Samuel, Kings, Chronicles, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. Why is a book or 2 books that we consider more history in our Old Testament, in our Protestant Bibles, but they're considered prophets in the Hebrew Bible? part of the reason why is because the Jewish thought is that history is not separate from prophetic word. History is also prophetic. What happens in time and what happens in space is, yeah, you can write it down as history, but it's prophetic. What is going on in Samuel, 1st and 2nd, and then 1st and 2nd Kings, if you read those, it feels like a lot of history, but it's prophetic. What's going on in those all those stories are prophetic stories. We put them as historical, and then we leave them as history. And we don't think of them as the same weight as you would put Isaiah or Jeremiah, the big hitters, Amos. You know what those books are doing. They're sending a prophetic voice to the people. The Hebrews, the Jewish people and the Hebrew Bible puts them in the prophet Nevi'im section because it's a prophecy. It's prophetic. And I think if you can read Samuel, if you can get out of what you've been trained or what you've been thinking your whole life with the Bible, and get out of your head with just thinking Samuel and Kings are this just fuddy-duddy, old, dusty history that's boring to read, and you read it as prophetic and prophecy, all of a sudden it becomes a lot more alive. And you're like, whoa, okay, this happened in time and space, but that's why. And that's what this what Samuel is doing, what David is doing, what all of these kings are doing, and all of those pieces, there's a prophecy going on in there. And that makes those books, for me at least, become a lot more meaningful than just like, oh, this king did this and then this king did that, and that, But if you put it in the prophetic voice, and it's hard to do because we see it as history, but if you put it in the prophetic voice, then what happens in actual real time and real space in history can also be prophecy, and not just somebody, a blowhorn and going, this is going to happen or whatever. So that's very interesting for me at least. Hopefully people that read that too. And then there's going to be a couple other differences that are going to be very interesting. So we cut our Old Testament into 4 sections.
Okay.
The Hebrew Bible puts it in 3. The Tanakh is made up of 3. So T was Torah, N was Nevi'im.
I
don't know. I should probably stop saying it that way. And then the last one, the K, is Chevutim. Yeah. Kevutvim. No, Ketuvim. We're going to stay with that. I'm just going to say the K one. The writings. Yep. They're considered the writings. So, Psalms. Okay, easy enough. Proverbs. Job. We would think of Job as something different, but it's Job. Song of Solomon. Ruth. Lamentations. Have you read Lamentations in a while?
It's been a while.
Oh, it's brutal. It's brutal. I think maybe I said this before. A number of years ago at my previous congregation, I thought it'd be great to do Lamentations for Lent. And our children were doing the same topic as we were doing in worship. And at first the children's ministry director was like, okay, that'll be great. And then I read it. I'm like, oh no. Oh, this is really bad. I mean, doesn't seem to be any ray of light. Now, when we get to Lamentations, we're going to see what's going on there. But it's not like, hey, kids, let's gather around for a nice story. And I went back to her and I said, I don't think we can do this. She goes, thank you so much. Thank you. I was like, tell me next time,
Right.
Ecclesiastes, Esther, Daniel, Ezra, Nehemiah together. Those are like companion books. And then Chronicles is there. So a couple things I want to pull out from that. The big hitter is Chronicles is considered to be a history book. For the Hebrew Bible, it's considered to be a writing. And when we get to Chronicles and 1st and 2nd Kings, you're going to have to open your mind up to what's actually going on.
So I got a question. Are we going to go with the Hebrew Bible?
No.
Like in that order? Or
no, we're going to go through our Bible. I think it's too hard for people to then go switch and go, oh.
We just have to remind them, well, in the Hebrew side of things, this was this type of book.
Yeah,
right?
this is the book. Because the first 5 books that we've been in, it's the same.
Yeah.
We see them as the Pentateuch, which is the Protestant way to look at it. Law is one way. But the Hebrews would call it teaching. You're teaching. And I think I have this right. Could be wrong. That if you go to synagogue or you go to, synagogue, they spend a lot of time on one book. Like years, like 3 years on like Dueteronomy. That's all they read. Because you're being taught.
Okay.
It's not law, as in if you don't do this, you're going to go to jail. It's you being taught how to be God's people. And then you go to the prophets on, okay, what happens when you're not following those teachings? The prophet needs to come and speak to you. And then the writings are there to support all of that. So there's one major difference between the writings and the prophets. We include a book in the prophet section that the Hebrews do not. And it's this wild book. Oh, let me go back to 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st and 2nd Chronicles. If you go ahead, you want to work ahead a little bit and read both of those books. Those are the books of the Bible that when I was a kid sitting in the church, my dad was the pastor, and instead of listening to him preach, because I'd hear him at home, I would read 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st and 2nd Chronicles because it's like Game of Thrones. Like it's like kings and queens and wars and battles but if you read 1st and 2nd Kings and 1st and 2nd Chronicles, they're almost identical. Basically, and when you read it, you're like, oh, I already read this in Kings. Well, there's a reason for that. And we'll get to that when we get to Kings and Chronicles. So I won't give it away right now. But in the Hebrew Bible, they're split up. Kings is in the prophets, Chronicles is in the writings. There's a reason for that. In our Bible, in the Protestant Bible, they're both in the history.
Yeah.
So, but one major book that's a weird book. You know, one of the most weirdest books? Think about one of the weirdest books you've ever read. It's a lot of kids' musicals come after it. There's these 3 guys in a fire.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Shadrach,
Yep.
Meshach, and Abednego. It's the book of Daniel. We have it as a prophetic book. It's in the prophets. It's also kind of like apocalyptic, like revealing. It's like Revelation. There's a couple apocalyptic books in Scripture.
And a lot of times it's connected, at least other passages that I've heard in my history, it's connected to Revelation in the end times.
So when we get to Daniel, we're going to find some very interesting stuff. Because depending on where you think Daniel was written, what time, and where it was written, and what was it writing to, and who is it being written to, and what is it written for, it's either a prophetic book or it is a writing. Now, you could even claim that it's prophetic in both, but it depends on where you date it.
So a writing in that it's similar to something like Job, which from what I understand, it didn't actually really happen in true life. So there's a possibility that Daniel perhaps didn't actually happen in real life, and these are writings.
So when you think about some of these books, let me see here. Did I miss one? No. We struggle with Jonah in some of the stories of Jonah. We would never say, I think this is important for people to get their heads around, and it might take people a while, but it's easy to, it would be difficult to say that all the parables that Jesus taught were true. I mean, did the Good Samaritan story actually happen in time and space, or was Jesus using a story to teach something?
A metaphor.
Analogy, whatever. We do that all the time. We tell stories to tell. I'll do this one more time because I think we did it in the beginning, and I think it's worth repeating.
Yeah.
Is the Bible contains stories that are true, not because they only happen in time and space, but they're true because they happen to us. So the example I always use is sometimes the Bible gives us actual factual information. This happened here at this time, and archaeology even can back that up. It's true. One night I came home from a meeting at church. It was a little bit later, and everybody was already in bed. And I walk in, and it's super cold in the house. And I go to the thermostat, and it's off. But the thermometer, it was like 55 degrees. It was February. It's like super wintry, right?
Yeah.
Super cold.
Yep.
And I think to myself, I get into fix-it mode, right? I'm into dad mode. I'm like, okay, here we go. Well, I got to fix this thing. We're either going to go to the hotel, I got to wake everybody up, or we're going to light a fire, and we're going to put blankets on, whatever, and figure it out in the morning. So I went to Google, and I said, my heater's all out, whatever. What do I do? And they said, well, here's the top choice to fix it. And there was this little ignition pen. And they said, take some Brillo, like a Brillo pad, pull it out, and you rub it, you put it back in, and it'll probably start back up. So I'm like, really? Seriously? That's the answer? So I did it, and it worked. So sometimes the Bible is like Google. I mean, sometimes it is like Google. Was it true? Yes, 100% true. When I was in, I think my 7th, 8th grade, I read a book called Where the Red Fern Grows. Mm-hmm. And if you haven't read it, I'm sorry, push pause or skip through this part. It's a story about a young man who has these hound dogs. And he trains them, and they go out and they go raccoon hunting. And he goes and hunts with these amazing coon dogs. And that's what we would call them down in Texas, coon dogs. And one of them gets trapped by a mountain lion and gets mauled and dies. And the boy, cries and digs a grave, and he puts his dog in the grave and covers him up. And the other dog ends up crawling on top of that grave and dying because of the love or the connection with the other dog.
The missing companionship.
Yep.
Whatever.
Now, was that true? Did it actually happen in time and space? Was it like Google? Obviously, it's not like Google. That's a story that someone created. Someone told a story to tell something more deep about who we are as people. As what does love mean? What does grief mean? How do you move through all of those kinds of things? What does it mean to be alive? In some ways, that story, where the red fern grows, is more true than Google. Because that story, and I'm laying in my bed and I'm bawling. I'm just bawling. I'm this kid just bawling like, oh my gosh, maybe you love this dog, and now the dog's dead, the other one dies, and I'm like, oh no, I can't believe it. But I learned about love, and I learned about grief, and I learned about loss, and I learned what it means to feel. And the Bible contains both of those. And so when we read things like Job, what is that story trying to tell us? And when we get to Job, my wife is so upset with me about Job, because we did a whole summer series on Job in my poor congregation.
Oh, okay.
I think we did like 13 weeks on Job, and it was during COVID. And it was brutal. So we won't do 13 weeks on Job, but it's trying to tell us something about the nature of God and the nature of us and what happens and all that stuff. So Daniel could very well be in that same genre of, is it Google or is it where the red fern grows? And I'm going to give you my perspective on it when we get to it, but that's why it's in two different spots. That's why for us in the Old Testament, it happened in time and space. There are actually three guys in the fire.
It's historical.
It's historical and prophetical, but it's a writing in Hebrew. Our Jewish brothers and sisters hold this kind of stuff a little bit more loosely than we do in our Western Christian minds.
Do you think it has something to do with, obviously, when the canon was all put together, right? You're in a different perspective. You're already now to Jesus, through Jesus, all that stuff.
Yep.
Do you think that people have already sort of connected the revelation to Daniel and kind of gone that perspective that's a part of why they put it in the way that they did?
I don't know if the original canon, when it was put together in this order that we have as our Protestant Bible. I'll have to look that up. There might have been some changes here or there. I know that people like Luther didn't want didn't want revelation in the Bible, didn't want some of the New Testament texts in the Bible. James didn't want James because it felt too much like law. And so over the years, there's been different thoughts about where it goes, but I think people are just trying to do the best they could with what they had. And it's obviously a split between Judaism and Christianity, and there's not a lot of conversation. I mean, wouldn't it be amazing if the early bishops of the church sat down with Jewish rabbis and said, "Hey, let's talk. Let's do this. Do Bible study together." But these bishops aren't going to do that. These priests aren't going to do that. They have the facts, right? They know exactly what it is. And to have any thought of doubt, that means you're not faithful. And the same thing happens for us today. A lot of people, when they have doubt, they feel like they're being unfaithful. So when we went through the Genesis story, the creation story in Genesis, the first creation story in Genesis, because there's multiple, when we were talking about, if you take it literally, there's Adam, one person on the earth, then there's Eve, then there's two people on the whole earth, and then there's Cain, and Abel, there's four. Then Cain kills Abel, there's three. Cain gets kicked out of the garden, and he marries somebody. What? What do you mean? What are you talking about? That can't be true, because if you read that story like an encyclopedia, like Google, you miss the whole point of it.
Yeah.
It is a lot more like where the red fern grows than it is like Google. And sorry, there's Bing and whatever else search engines are out there. DuckDuckGo. I don't want to. Everybody knows Google too, but but if we can get our, and so when we even did that in worship, I even counted out. People were upset because they had never read that before. They just stopped the story. They never read past. And then all of a sudden it really pushes against their notion of what is true then. And I went through that in college.
Okay.
I grew up as a kid in a pastor's house pretty much knowing the story. And I went to college and took these religion classes, and I'm like, what? Really? I'm like, I've been taught a bunch of bunk, oh, what are you doing? Because especially when we're doing liberation theology, which will blow your mind in a lot of ways. And I had to reconstruct a lot of things. And so when I talk about this kind of stuff, I'll be very careful so people don't just go, well, what I was taught, I guess none of it's true. That's not the case. It's reframe, reconstruct. We can't stay in deconstruction mode all the time. I mean, postmodernism is all about destruct. You gotta have some reconstruction that goes on.
But you can't reconstruct until you deconstruct.
Yeah, and hopefully some of this is helpful, and some of the resources we give are helpful for doing that. And there's lots of different thoughts on all this, and we live with every piece of information at our fingertips. You know, we can get any kind of information we need, except a really good book on Joshua.
So if you know of a good book on Joshua,
good books on Joshua,
then send them.
Yeah.
Send them.
And
this
I'm
way.
looking for stuff that thinks outside the box, because I know what the box is. I mean, I'm in the box. I'm looking through that one window. You know, I need a book that helps me see in a different window. It's the same room.
Yeah.
You know, but I need to see different parts of the room. So, and then, like I said, when we get to Chronicles, Kings and Chronicles are split up in the Hebrew Bible. In our Protestant Bible, they're put in historical. So we're going to get to that. The next book that we're going to jump into is probably my favorite book of all time in the scriptures, is the Book of Ruth. And we're going to break that up into probably 7 weeks.
Okay.
Which people are like, what? But it's such a beautiful story, but it's also filled with heartbreak and pain and the unknown and the unkindness of strangers, and then the kindness of strangers, the clash of two nations in a very small story. So we're going to go from massive. So in Scripture with Genesis, right, we start out with this little garden, a couple people in it, a couple trees. Of course, there's a bunch of people running around out there, but the story, and then the story grows and grows. Abraham, Sarah, and then it becomes this big, huge narrative. Power struggles with Pharaoh, and the narrative becomes huge, and there's people all over the place. There's hundreds of thousands of Jews. I mean, just everywhere. It's massive, and then it just goes, and it shrinks to this one little family that's just trying to make it. And it's just beautiful story. So again, if people want to read ahead, read the Book of Ruth. Don't go so fast. Read it slow. A lot of people read it for the best promise that's probably ever been made, which is, you know, I will go where you go. I will die where you die. Your people shall be my people. Your God shall be my God. Wonderful promise from Ruth to Naomi. But there's so much more to that whole promise. So that's what we're going to do, man.
Sounds exciting.
And we do have to make an end note here.
Okay.
Darren Hensel,
Yes.
who's been a part of several A and B teams on the podcast, is taking a new job.
Yeah.
And we're very excited for him.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, we're sad for him.
Yeah.
But I always tell people, if you've got an opportunity to grow in different ways than you would here, man, really be serious about it. Think about it. And he did that. And he's going to go, and he'll have a lot more opportunity to do a lot more things, and super excited for him. And one of the things that of the many things Darren has done with our community, one of the things is what he wanted and lived in this podcast.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if anybody was going to listen to this thing at all. And Darren was more excited about the podcast than I was. And you, of course, and Jake, who does maybe some sound or something.
Jake does audio.
Yeah. So it was fun to see Darren and you, who are typically behind the scenes. No one sees what you do.
I mean,
they see the product of what you do,
yep.
but they don't see you doing it.
Mm-hmm.
To see Darren be excited about getting on camera and being vulnerable with not knowing lots of stuff, but being willing to seek and have conversation, ask questions, has been a wonderful gift to us. So we want to say thank you, Darren,
Yep.
wherever you are.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be missing you. And thank you for what you're able to start with us and what we'll be able to continue because of your leadership. So we want to give him a shout out.
Yep. Thanks, Darren. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Again, this is our last podcast of this first season, and we will be resuming it come the end of September. So this is actually a great time to send in some comments, some feedback to, like Darren likes to put, communications.
Yeah, that's right.
communications@popmn.org. You can send them there. Maybe you have ideas for the set.
Oh.
Maybe you have ideas of maybe
Different
a little.
flowers.
Well, yeah, these are not quite flowers. Yeah. Maybe you have ideas of a little bit like another mini segment within it where we are addressing questions, like if you send them in. So
Gotta send them in.
Yep. Again, this is the last episode, number 38 of this season, and we will get back on the horse come end of September
with Ruth.
With Ruth.
Cool.
So thanks for watching, and we appreciate all that you do.
Take care.
You too.